I spent 2 years working for a particular boss, who I'll call Dan. Dan was, and almost certainly still is, the most unacceptable human being I have ever had the displeasure of encountering. He was a compulsive liar, a narcissist, short-tempered, unethical, unreasonable, unintelligent, and abusive. I once witnessed him spend half an hour shouting at a salesman for wearing shoes that Dan didn't approve of. Not inappropriate shoes, mind you, but just ones that Dan didn't like. The salesman in question could have gone home and changed his shoes in the time that Dan spent cursing him out and belittling him. He also sold a client second-hand computers, claiming they were new and priced as new ones. This man not only assaulted me, but verbally and emotionally abused me for the better part of 2 years, and did everything in his power to keep me under his thumb. He constantly micromanaged me, to the point of just dictating to me what I should write in an email to a client. If it wasn't done exactly his way, it wasn't correct. I had to argue with him, just to get a goddamn sick day, even though I'm legally entitled to it. I was woefully underpaid, and on call 24/7. This made it difficult for me to find other employment, and is one of the reasons I stayed as long as I did. He made my life absolutely miserable, and I developed a bit of a drinking problem as a result. I recently watched a presentation on domestic violence, and his behavior is a textbook case of what DV abusers do. I could go on and on about the things that this man did to be the biggest asshole he could be, but this is ProRevenge, not bad bosses, so I'll get to the story. One day, Dan and I had a disagreement about something. I was right, and I had the emails to prove it, and I was frankly fed up with his bullshit. I told him I wouldn't be going to work because I was taking a sick day. He proceeded to shove me down to the ground. He's a big guy, probably one of the reasons he's gotten away with being the human garbage he is for so long, and starts trying to strangle me. I was able to fend him off and escape, and after I did I filed a police report. There were no witnesses, so that was going to go nowhere. He actually had one of his other subordinates make a claim that the alleged assault didn't happen. Said subordinate wasn't there at the time, so false report. I naturally told everyone I knew, and all his clients, that contacted me afterward. I was their primary IT support, so quite a few of them had my personal number, that I had filed a police report against him for assault. I specifically said it that way, because unlike simply claiming that he assaulted me, telling people I filed a report was inarguably true and not slanderous. A lot of his clients were already not happy with the services he provided, internet and PBX, so that certainly turned a lot of them off of renewing their contracts. A very close family friend of mine, Carol, was naturally one of the first to hear about the assault. I left the country about a month later in search of better opportunities, but my friend remained, and became the chairman of the board of trustees for the body corporate of the neighborhood where Dan lived. A body corporate is basically like an HOA, but with different laws governing them. She set her sights on making his life hell. Dan had a broken down car that had been broken down for over a year at that point. He never had the money to fix it because he's a shitty businessman who never seemed to realize that his business model had really tiny profit margins, and the rules of the neighborhood were changed to force broken down cars to be towed away. If the owner didn't tow it, the body corporate would, and charge the owner, and fine them. So Dan was fined a few times, not small amounts either, and when he was fined, he did what he always does when things don't go his way, throw a fucking tantrum while having no leg to stand on. The tantrum in this case was several expletive-filled emails to the body corporate, which is just such a great way to endear yourself to someone who already hates you, which got him fined again for breaking the conduct code. This, combined with the loss of revenue for his business, has led to him not having any substantial income for over half a year now. He has no car, nor the money to buy one. Several of his big clients are definitely not going to renew contracts with him, and he appears to no longer have any staff in his employ. Nobody's seen anyone coming to his house in months now, and the body corporate is pressuring his landlord to evict him. He's well and truly fucked. I'm living happily in another country now, and got an awesome job that pays 20 times what working for him did. Yes, really 20 times more money. That's how little I made under him. TL. Doctor, boss assaults me, and thanks to a friend of mine, his business failed, and he is on the verge of eviction. Edit. First silver. Thank you, kind mystery donor. Update. My mom's stalker was sentenced today to 3 years in a minimum security facility. He will probably do about 18 months, but better than nothing at least. My mom found out today that he attacked someone in jail, so his sentence has an extra 6 months added onto it. Mom told dad about some dude that she thought had been following her home from work for a week or so. Dad borrowed a few of the neighbor's geese. The neighbor has ostriches, and she uses the geese the same way others use guard dogs. So at about 2 AM we get woken up by the battle cry of a waterfowl from hell, and there is a guy in the tree house next to my parents' side of the house. Dad, my brother and I went to go take a look. Dad has already called the sheriff. Before we went outside, there is a dude in him 40s in the tree house, and he looks like he is bleeding. Geese are vicious, the evil lovable little hellhounds. Dad had an interesting conversation with guy, i.e. what the fuck did he think he was doing, stalking my mom, etc. Sheriff showed up, arrested the guy for trespassing, stalker, destruction of property and lewd behavior towards a minor, a felony. The window he tried to get in was mine. And we are keeping the geese for a weeks, just in case. Okay, so this isn't a story about me. This is about my neighbor. This is exactly how he told me this story, and I witnessed portions of it for myself. Semicolon. Backstory. My neighbor, who we will call David, not real name, and my other neighbor, who we will call Karen, not real name, often got into arguments about who owns what part of the property. They live right next to each other, so this is understandable. Karen was known for being a Karen, so this explains a lot. Semicolon. Semicolon. Karen had just got engaged with her boyfriend, who we will call Kyle, not real name, who went over to her house a lot, like every other day, and would spend the night there. We saw his car parked there a lot. Kyle would park his car in front of David's lawn, because Karen is part of a large family, so they have many cars. Therefore there is not room in the driveway. David got a new camper recently, one of those massive ones that are practically buses. They needed a place to park it because they didn't feel comfortable leaving it in a public place, but Kyle's car was there. Around this same time, news was spreading around my neighborhood that Kyle and Karen had gotten married. Kyle moved in with Karen and started using the front of David's lawn as his assigned parking spot. He was told that it was part of her property because Karen was a dummy and didn't understand that property lines exist. There was an incident in the past with a bench and another with a few trees. Eventually David got tired of Kyle parking where they wanted to park their camper. He had been having to park it down the road in the public camper places, or whatever they are called. He began plotting his revenge. His plan was to park the camper in front of Kyle's car so that he would have to pull out backwards. This way he would have to struggle to get his car out between one of Karen's siblings' cars and the camper. When this plan happened, Kyle came running up to David's door and began shouting the usual "I'm calling the cops" and whatnot. When David didn't answer, he tried to inch his way out. He ended up bumping into the car behind him and putting a good sized dent in it. He instantly ran up to Karen's sibling and began apologizing and blamed it on David. Now Karen's entire family was mad at David. David said he saw this through the window and was laughing hysterically. Karen actually managed to think logically for once and blamed it on Kyle, but it was okay and insurance will cover it or something like that. Kyle began going off on Karen about how insurance would charge him for the damage, so they ended up fighting about insurance or whatever. This whole thing unraveled outside David's house, so he listened in through the open window. They then came up to his house. David answered the door and all of them, but Karen instantly started going off about how he caused a dent in Karen's sibling's car. He said that Kyle's car was parked on his property and that he needed to park his camper somewhere. He dug out the property line drawing or whatever and showed them all. Karen was pissed. Karen said that he had drawn those lines himself and that the actual lines were farther to the left, giving her more property and expanding past where Kyle was parked. Keep in mind, Kyle was parked by the windows of David's house, clearly on David's property. At this point I could hear yelling from a few houses down and walked over to listen for that sweet internet karma. Karen ended up calling the cops because David was disturbing the entire neighborhood. Two cops showed up in a car and instantly sided with David after reviewing the property lines. Karen was fined over $700 for misusing 911. Kyle ended up having to pay $900 for the damages done to the other car. Apparently he broke part of the engine or something. That's not all. Karen and Kyle ended up divorcing because Karen lied to him and said he was on her property, and Karen saying that it was her house so she could lie if she wanted, and other things of the sort. TLDR. Bickering over a parking spot made entitled married couple pay over $1,500 in fines and damages. The couple also divorced over this and a few other things with property issues. Edit. I live on a private road on a small lake. I see y'all in the comments saying David ain't own the road, but he does to a certain extent. Also I think it was the radiator or the gearbox that was damaged when Kyle apparently slammed the gas in reverse out of rage lol. Any Reddit YouTubers out there? If so, I'm saying hi to YouTube, specifically /D. So I'm an AS certified mechanic. I've been wrenching for 22 years. This story happened way back when I was still an oil change tech and learning my way. This customer comes in one day and wants us to look at his brakes and put some pads on the car that he brought. The shop manager had me bring the car in to look at. I pull the car in the shop and it is grinding real bad when I hit the brakes. I know it's more than a pad job. So the car goes up, the tires come off, and sure enough, he let his brakes go for so long there is no more brake surface on the rotors. He had wore them down to the cooling fins in the middle of the rotor. I of course tell my manager. Well, he told the customer, a crotchety old man, the situation and explains he needs new rotors. We even took him out and showed him there is really no rotor left at all. Naturally guy gets super pissed. Says we are just trying to get more money out of him. We better just do what he wants or he is going somewhere else. Blah, blah, blah. My manager takes it all in as cool as a cucumber. When dude was finished, my manager did the neatest thing I had ever seen at the time. He very calmly explained that the vehicle needed to be repaired correctly or he would red flag the car as it was unsafe to drive. Old boy looked like he was going to explode. Threatened to call the cops if we didn't return his vehicle. We were just crooks whole 9 yards. My boss said it's cool, I'll call them for you. Called in the state highway patrol. Showed them the car in front of the customer. They looked at him and said this car is unsafe for the road. He either fixes it correctly or has to tow it out of our shop if he wants to go somewhere else cause they will not let it on the road. Sad thing is he ended up paying to have it towed out a few days later, which I'm sure cost more than the $40 for new rotors. IDK if he got it fixed right or not. Most wrenches out there just want your car to be safe. We run on the same roads. I didn't know at the time, but I do now, that we do have authority to lock your car down if it is completely unsafe for the road until it is fixed correctly or towed somewhere else to get fixed correctly. I love what I do cause I make the road safer. I also work in a field where, no, the customer is not always right. Old man learned the hard way. A few others in my career have as well. I'm gonna try and keep it short as possible. This was in 2004, so a while back. Had a horrible son of my neighbors that played music all night every night, that blared like a rave, and made life hell for us, so my evil dad hatched a plan to ruin his life. We are from the south, and now when they first moved in we used to shoot guns a lot just for fun, and had little games like who had the better shot and stuff like that. Well, they were from Cali, so they had never shot or knew anything about guns, and it startled them. They asked us to not shoot during the evening, if that was possible, because they host dinner parties quite frequently for their clients whom are from Cali as well, and last time they said they were all scared to death, so we stopped. Since they asked politely, we stopped at around 2 to 3 p.m. before the evening. Then they said they were leaving town for a few months and their son would be there, so if possible, they would like my dad to keep an eye on him and check up on him. Well, he partied a lot. My dad didn't say anything about it really, since he was 21 and it wasn't any of his business if he got drunk, smoked weed etc. But he looked out for potentially harmful things like doing something stupid like drunk driving and stuff like that. and then the almost nightly rave started about 2 weeks in, and at first we didn't care, their property, their business, but then it got louder as they built a party area but about 50 feet away from our house on our property line. We then just asked nicely to keep it down a little since they came closer, and we had a baby, the second of my 4 little sisters, in the house that was losing a lot of sleep over this, and he acted all smug and said it's the country baby, no noise violations out here. And went on to even saying things like that's on you bro for having a kid. And before anyone says anything, I crap you not, the little prick actually said something that stupid, then proceeded to say your kid's health is not my problem guy now. My dad is not a violent person at all. My dad is quite the pacifist and believes we can solve more with words than fist. But don't literally say, "I'm gonna ruin your child's health," because I'm a jackass. And then act surprised when he starts moving towards you to beat your ass. Needless to say he, like most beaches, didn't try to fight, but had his friends jump in front of him whilst he talked crap. My mom talked my dad down as he had his can opener ready to open a can of hoopus, and we went back. Well, my dad had enough, so he did what he always does when he would think. He lit a cigarette and sat outside and watched nature. He then, with a skin crawling, gut bubbling, devilish smile, turned to me and said, "Son, go get our guns and bring out the targets. Also, get the cheap ammo. We are gonna burn through it." So, being in a southern state and just right out to city limits, we shot our guns with extra cheap ammo all night long for about 3 weeks. 50 foot from the mid targets, and ignored them as they pleaded with us to stop. They called the sheriff so much, they started ignoring them and never sent another car and even threatened them to stop calling as what we were doing was very legal. My dad said the last time they came out and told them we are within our rights to do this. He said it's the country baby, no noise violations out here. And that's true. It's all community regulated. If our nice neighbors asked us to keep it down, we did. That's what you do. You be polite to your neighbor. But this is clone was the opposite of neighborly, and I doubt couldn't even spell polite. So we continued until he fell into stage 2 of my satanic father's trickery. He told his parents. Mwahaha is the mental sound my father made with his big Joker's grin as he ran to get his house phone and call them to tell him that we were scaring them with our big bad shotguns and hunting rifles while the damn party was still going on. And that was precisely the plan for my dad. You see, my dad played chess, not checkers, and just like a pawn, he moved and manipulated him into thinking it was his idea to call his parents. But it was my dad leading him in that direction all along. My dad, you see, he is a bit manipulative against people he doesn't like, and as a person that has done a combination of sales and hard labor, has know how to read and play on train of thought and emotion. He could manipulate them into doing whatever he wanted. Well, El Dumbo and his bigger ears fell for it. You see, his parents didn't want him partying or drinking, and as Christians they really didn't want him smoking weed. So when they talked to him, they heard the music and knew immediately that there was a party. My dad very loudly said, "Young man, I need to speak with your parents about this. I smell marijuana. You reek of alcohol and these parties are getting out of hand." His parents heard him say that and ordered him to put my dad on the phone. He then told them everything but made it sound like the son wouldn't give him the number to their hotel. Before the mass popularity of everyone having cell phones, plus they were older people like in their late 50s, which was true, but he technically never asked further after the first time that he did. He then told them about the state of their and our property because of this, and anyway they were back in only 7 hours via flight. They were coming back that day and that was a part of the plan as well, and found the place trashed. They not only apologized, but offered us a vacation. They owned some hotel in LA. I don't remember which one. It was like a 3-star, and gave us a 2-week pass. Free food etc. It was fun. Didn't lose anything in LA, which is a very nice southern way of saying I would never live there, even if you paid me, but was fun nonetheless. Heard they kicked him out too after that, since he refused to look for a job and refused to work for the family business. Best part is, since his parents were honest people, they told the dean of his college he was attending that they will no longer be paying his tuition. So if he doesn't get you the money, to drop his ass, and that's what they did. future ruined, now working at the local McDonald's, and lives in a rundown part of town instead of his family's really nice 6-bedroom, 4-bath house LMAO. GG. If you enjoyed the stories, slap the like and subscribe button for more of them, and don't forget to support the original writers with an upvote. Links are in the description. Peace out, and catch you tomorrow.